What do you think about
Yeah.
self-diagnosis?
I think it's fine. I think the only reason that you would want to be actually diagnosed would be either to get help if you need that, because sometimes in order to get that help, you need the diagnosis, which is a problem in and of itself, I guess. Or if you kind of want to make sure for yourself, like, hey, is this indeed what is going on for me, which was the case for me. I'm someone that if I, like, before I actually got the diagnosis, I got it as an adult. I think I was 24 when I got the diagnosis a few years back. And for me, it was really almost to let me know, like, yes, what you are experiencing is like, it's true. It's not like something you are making up. And almost I was feeling like if I'm calling myself autistic without having the diagnosis, then am I taking someone seriously that does actually have the diagnosis and is autistic? So that was kind of what was going on in my head before getting the diagnosis. So that's why I ended up going into that whole to
Process.
get the into the process to get the diagnosis. But if you're okay with just being self-diagnosed, I'm fine with that. Like, absolutely okay.
Do you think I mean, the obvious harm that could come from that would be, I mean, if for every self-diagnosis, doesn't have to be
Hmm.
autism, but would be false positives and false negatives, right?
Yeah.
So could you, what would be the harm of a false false negative, for example? What would have been
False
what?
negative. So
Yeah,
you think you are not autistic while being autistic.
yeah. Basically, you do a self-diagnosis, and it turns out and it says that you're not autistic, but actually you are. What would be a big, like?
Mm, that depends. Like, do you want to get the diagnosis autism? Or would you like to not have the diagnosis autism? Like, if you don't
Wait,
really
but I
want the
feel like it
diagnosis in
shouldn't
the first
depend on that.
place.
I mean, I agree that it depends, but I feel like it shouldn't depend on your volition, right? It should be more
Okay,
like,
so if you feel like you're autistic and then you go through a like test, I guess, self-diagnosis test,
yeah,
and it says you're not autistic.
yes,
You mean it like that, right?
yes.
Yeah, okay. um yeah, it can feel kind of invalidating, I guess. I think that's, and then you might keep searching on from like what is going on, what you are experiencing, like why are you experiencing what you are experiencing. I think that's the most harm in it, from what I can come up with right now.
Mm-hmm.
There's probably a whole lot of other things that can go
Mm-hmm.
wrong there, but for right now, that's the only thing that I can really think of.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I guess like there is no. I mean, the reason why I'm asking is because autism is so special in that sense that there is no treatment, quote unquote. There is no
Yeah,
like nothing basically happens after the diagnosis,
no,
except
yeah,
like I heard that there is some uh, negative consequences that can happen from it. I heard, I'm not sure, that there is even some countries that were uh, blocking people with autism into to basically enter the country. That was quite
oh,
horrific. Yeah, it's like one or two countries. I heard it on a
okay,
YouTube channel that was centered around autism, but it's some minor, just one country or something like that. But
hmm,
I mean, there is basically no positive, like like I feel like there is no positive thing that comes from a diagnosis except maybe the idea that you can't change a few things about yourself and you don't have to force yourself to change. You can just start accepting I mean, that's what you
yeah,
said. I think I got this idea from you. So you've said, um uh you've said that it makes you allowed you to work with your brain rather than against it.
yeah, true, yeah. Basically, what for me, like getting a diagnosis was, it's validating. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you kind of, it feels like it's okay to be who you are almost, which is kind of weird that you actually need diagnosis to
Yeah,
be to get there.
yeah,
That I get that is weird. I
yeah, it is
definitely
weird.
do. Yeah, it is. It's very weird. It doesn't
Yeah.
make sense at all.
Yeah.
But it can feel really validating, and also actually knowing what's going on can really help to, yeah, like I said, make work with your brain instead of against it.
Yeah.
You start to learn that your brain works a little bit differently, um, and that's not necessarily wrong. It's just a little bit different. Different is not necessarily wrong.
Hmm.
I mean, it's labeled as a disorder, which makes it sound wrong, but it's not inherently wrong.
I feel like even if it would be wrong, it should be okay. I mean, for
Yeah.
example, I can give you an example. Like I have a very extreme personality in that sense that I have to do everything in a really extreme way, and all my friends always make fun of me that I always have to exaggerate something. If I go
Hmm.
to the gym, I go every day, and if I eat something, I eat a lot of it and stuff
Yeah.
like that. I have a pretty addictive personality as well, which I don't know is also a trait in autism, I guess. But
Yeah.
yeah, so but at some point, I mean, it has bothered me a lot during my youth because it makes problems for you. I mean, it just obviously creates problems,
Yeah.
and it has bothered me a lot that I couldn't regulate so good as my other friends who were just like effortlessly just eating one chip out of a chips
Hmm.
bag and then leaving the rest, and I couldn't. I just had to finish it all, and at some point I just accepted myself like that and I just don't buy any chips. And then my friends don't get it
Smart.
and they're like, just why don't you just buy a bag of chips and just don't
Yeah.
eat the whole thing? And I'm like, I can't do it. That's just the way I am. So I feel like we could just do that. And I know it's not good that I'm like that. But I
Well, is it
thought
wrong?
about
You
that.
know that you work that way,
Yeah, I
so you
thought
can work
about
with that. So
yeah.
yeah,
I didn't want to work against my brain, so I don't buy any chips.
yeah, smart.
And I feel like I don't need a diagnosis for that. I don't need
No.
like I don't need a doctor to tell me that I have that. I already know that. Like
Yeah.
and and experience tells me that it's not that mutable. I mean, people tell me that it's probably good. It would be good if I change it, if I stop being like that. That there is,
Yeah, but how would you change that if that's part of you?
I don't know, like probably maybe there could be. I mean, I can imagine that I have something in my psychology that makes me like that.
Hmm.
And of course, one way to go about it would be to say, okay, go to a psychologist,
Yeah.
work on that, find out what it is, and fix it. But then I'm like, yeah, but this also makes me quite productive in other areas of my life. So I'm actually not that bothered by being like that, even though it's
Yeah.
obviously a negative thing. But it's like, and I feel like autism is a little bit similar. It's like, yeah, obviously
It's there.
it's there, and
That's
it's
all
not,
it
and
is.
it's
Yeah.
also hurting. It's not that
It
nice.
can be difficult. Yeah.
Yeah,
But there's also good things about it. So
yeah. So I
I get,
think, yeah.
yeah, I've had the question before, like if I would be able to take a pill and basically make the autism go away, if I would
Hmm.
take that, I'd say no.
Hmm.
Absolutely not.
Hmm. But can you understand other autistic people that would?
Yeah, I get it. Definitely. Like if you really struggle with um, parts of autism, I get that you would want to take that pill if it existed.
Hmm.
I do. But for me, I say no. It's part of me. It's part of who I am. Like it's not. Um, Autism is not who I am, but it is a part of me. It is the way that my brain works. It has always worked. I can't even really imagine what it would be like not being that way. It would change my entire personality if I do that.
Yeah, it is your brain, basically,
Yeah.
right? Uh, what would be the consequences? I mean, I feel like the consequences of a false positive would be kind of worse. I feel like because then because of this idea that we've touched upon, like this idea of if you get diagnosed with something in that sense, then it means that it's immutable, that you can't change it,
Hmm.
and it basically takes that agency away from you that you might be able to change this. It's like with me, like I still have the option somehow in my brain. I know that I could still work on that issue at some point,
Yeah.
and I don't have to be like that forever. I can just accept it, but I don't have to. And I feel like a diagnosis is like, on one hand, it's relieving that you don't have to work on it anymore, but it might be like if it's a false positive, if it's not actually your brain,
Hmm.
if it's just your personality,
Yeah.
if it's maybe just trauma. or something like that. It what do you think? Do you think that there is an yeah? I basically answered my own question, but what do you think about it? I guess.
Yeah, I think I agree. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it would be more harmful probably, um, because you're not going to work on maybe the underlying problems that are there. At the same time, I guess if you're really after getting the false positive diving into it, you are also learning how to work with those things in a way. You're just not really going into like the root cause of it, I guess. But I do think it would be more harmful maybe than a false negative.
Hmm.
Yeah,
It's a pretty heated. I don't know. Do you are you into the whole autistic community on YouTube? Like, do you
barely.
watch a lot?
Barely.
Okay, okay, okay.
No,
Yeah,
I sometimes have like that I look into a specific part of it, but
yeah.
I'm definitely not like all the way into the
Hmm.
whole community at all.
What about like I don't know the academic discussions about it? Are you at all like, or do you just are like I'm just living my life? Don't leave me alone.
I'm mostly just living my life,
Yeah.
and I'll just kind of go into parts that are interesting to me, I guess. Also,
Hmm.
I'm in working as an aromatherapist. I do also work with autistic people.
Hmm.
It's where I wrote my thesis on it, I guess. So
Hmm.
it's how I graduated as an aromatherapist working with autism.
Hmm.
So if there's something in there in a client maybe that's triggering me, then that's probably what I will look into in terms of research or
Hmm.
YouTube, maybe other people's experiences. But I'm mostly just yeah living my life, seeing if there's something that's a problem for me, then I might dive into that. I may read books about other people's experience on it, but I'm not really into the whole like
I mean,
YouTube autism world, I guess.
the reason why I'm asking is because this is a really hot topic.
Hmm.
Self-diagnosis. It's a
Yeah,
really,
I get
really,
it.
really, really hot topic. For many reasons, and like one of the reasons are the ones that we touched upon. Others are just the yeah the problem that comes with it. Like people don't want to get officially diagnosed because of multiple reasons. For example, being stigmatized or having it on your
Hmm.
record, or uh,
It's expensive
it's expensive.
in most
Exactly.
countries. Yeah.
Yes. So what? And then you have also the idea of gatekeeping, that it's like gatekeepy to not allow people to call themselves autistic, or to suggest that it's I think already what I've said is already pretty would infuriate a lot of people. I think
Probably. I'm sure
probably.
something I've said would infuriate people as well. There's always going to be people that are not going to like what you say,
Sure.
like
Sure.
whatever you say.
Why do you think this topic is so hot, like in within the I didn't even know that this was the case. Like for outsiders this is like completely
It's a
completely
different
frozen.
world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think makes this? I mean, don't you think it's kind of toxic? And do you see any way we can resolve this conversation?
Yeah, it's absolutely toxic. Definitely. Um, yeah, I guess you can always find points for both viewpoints, I guess, in that way.
Hmm.
So it makes it kind of difficult to really say what would be the right thing to do. For me, I really don't mind people being self diagnosed. So, from, yeah, I really don't care if people have had an actual official diagnosis or not. If you are experiencing similar things to what I'm experiencing, what does it matter if you put a label on it or not? I really don't care about that, to be completely honest.
I feel like I'm just so into like official institutions, and like
Mm-hmm.
I really believe in the idea of like academia and science and like
Yeah,
scientific process and all of this stuff. And
true.
I feel like every time this is under attack, which is currently through this discussion it
Often,
is,
probably. Yeah.
yeah, it's really troubling for me, like in all areas. Like we had the same thing with COVID and with a lot of it's just it's a lot of things that are worth criticizing, but just like denying the scientific process is always like something that yeah, kind of is difficult.